Hi from Surprise in Arizona. Hope you're having a super fantastic sparkling day. Welcome to Before the Dirt Nap podcast number 1961. And I've got to look over here on my notes. Taxing times, weird and wacky levies in history. I came across an article today and I thought this would make a great topic for tonight's talk because, sometimes you've got to get around a brick wall and sometimes you will find things in unusual places. So first of all, I apologize for being late. I was having technical issues. For some reason, my Chrome is going very, very slowly at times. So I think I've got to go in and clean out all the cache and cookies and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, we're here. We've made it. We're on time. All right, so let's have a talk about some of these weird and wacky levies that they used to have, that ancestors used to have. There's 10 of them. Weird taxes our ancestors paid. Oh, I tell you, there's some interesting ones in there. Like from 1696 to 1851 in England, they had a window tax. Learn about daylight robbery tax that led to bricked up windows and how it reflected wealth. So the more windows that you had, the wealthier you were. The less windows you had that were all bricked up, the not so wealthy you were. That was from 1696 to 1851. They got taxed by the number of windows that they had. It was crazy. And I'm just like, I was like reading this article. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. So in 1696 in England, an act for granting to His Majesty's several rates or duties upon houses for making good the deficiency of the clipped money created a property tax based on the number of windows in a house. The tax was repealed in 1851. In the United States, the so-called glass tax or window tax was a nickname for the 1798 U.S. direct tax, which included tax on dwellings valued at more than $100 and on 2 acres or less. It used the number of windows as one measure of value. And you can actually access the Pennsylvania direct tax records on Ancestry.com. There's the different genealogy sites will have access to different records and things, but you can look up tax records. It's very interesting what one can find when one is looking. Now, this one, I mean, some of these are just sort of like, wait, what? Here's one of them. Beards. Russian Emperor Peter the Great, hoping to modernize his country to compete with Western powers, introduced a tax on men's beards in 1698. The facially hirsute had to carry around a token showing they had paid. Police could forcibly shave those lacking their token. Can you imagine that? Or the Nixons? Wealthy bearded folks were taxed more heavily than average town folks. Peasants paid a fee when they entered the city rather than an annual tax. Peter put his money where his mouth was. At a reception in his honor, he pulled out a razor and shaved his military commander and aides. Wow. Like I said, some of these are a little weird and wacky. They're a little weird and wacky. This one here, 1784. From 1784 to 1811, Britain levied a tax on men's hats. It was intended to tax the wealthy more than the poorer folk. The former presumably owned more fancier hats. Hat retailers had to buy a license, and each hat had to have a revenue stamp glued onto the inside. I don't know how they came up with half of these. Soap tax. That was another one. Soap tax. Yes, they had tax on soap. Where did my soap one go? Hang on. I've got a list here. Why did I move it? I don't know why I moved it. Where'd the soap tax go? Hang on. I lost my soap tax. I had one on soap. I've got a list of them. Now I'm trying to look for the information on it. That one's going to be hilarious when I get to that one. So England had a soap tax from 1712 to 1853, and the levy on soap influenced hygiene and smuggling. Oh my gosh, they have some wild and wacky stuff on there. So the richer you were, the cleaner, the more hygienic you were. The poorer you were, the less. There we go on that one. So these are just some of the taxes that our ancestors had to pay. From 1797 to 1798, France had a clock tax. It was a brief but bizarre attempt to tax timepieces. Obviously, it didn't last very well. Various countries had salt tax. Salt was a value food preservative, making it a target for taxation, sometimes leading to social upheaval. The Moscow salt riot of 1648 protested Russia's universal salt tax. It disproportionately affected the peasantry whose diet was mainly salt-preserved fish, causing a salt riot. In France, the hated Gabelle, I think that's how it's said, contributed to the French Revolution. The National Assembly abolished the salt tax in 1790, but Napoleon reinstated it in 1806. In India, Mahatma Gandhi staged a 24-hour salt march to protest British taxes on salt production, a heavy burden for the coastal villages such as Dandi. Yes, so they had that as well. Oh my gosh. I don't have the years because it was various countries had this over time. There was a bachelor tax. These taxes were aimed at unmarried men to encourage marriage and procreation. I'm like, seriously, you single? Yeah, well, we're going to tax you for that. The only way you're going to get out of it, get married. Seriously. In England from 1709 to 1831, they had a candle tax. Just to get a little bit of light. Go figure. Where did my candle tax go? Oh, I've lost my candle. Oh, I've got to figure out which tab I had it under. Nope, can't find it. Okay. So, they had a candle tax, and it was it impacted household lighting habits. So it meant that you took that a lot of homes that couldn't afford the candle tax would light one candle, and everybody had to sit around that one candle. And remember, you couldn't light the other candles in the room. Those that were wealthier, they had the chandeliers that had all the candles on it. They had the candelabras. They were able to shed a lot more light on things because they could afford to do so. In England from 1662 to 1689, they had a chimney tax, where homes were taxed based on the number of chimneys and its effect on architecture. I want to know who determined what the effect on the architecture was and how that got taxed. That's what I want to know. That's just sort of like, really? Okay. So tea. American colonists, jeepers, paid a tax on tea starting with 1769 Townshend Revenue Act, which also taxed glass, lead, oil, paint, and paper. Boycotts and protests led Parliament to repeal the Townshend Act taxes, except for tea in 1770. But this wasn't what sparked the Tea Party in 1773. That was the Tea Act passed on May 10th, 1773. It gave the British East India Company a monopoly on tea sales in the American colonies, allowing it to undercut both smuggled in tea and tea importers. Tea would be cheaper, but colonists would still have to pay the tax. Now, I don't know about this. This one is sort of like, ooh, really? Who came up with this? Squirrels. This wasn't a tax paid on squirrels, but with squirrels. Yuck. Gray squirrels were once so numerous in Ohio that in 1807, law required taxpayers to turn into the township clerk a quota of squirrel scalps in proportion to their county levies, provided that it did not exceed 100 or be less than 10, along with their tax payment. Ugh. Yeah, no. There was also, where's the other one gone? Hang on, I've got to find the right page here. Oh, there was the stamp The Stamp Act of 1765 taxed British American colonists a lot of things, including dice, playing cards, and newspapers. Most of the colonies formally condemned the act. Protests turned violent, and several colonies held a Stamp Act Congress. Parliament repealed the act the next year. And then this one goes on and talks about playing card. They said, we noted in the Stamp Act, including playing cards among the taxed items. More recently, in 1935, the state of Alabama issued a 10-cent tax on packs of playing cards containing 54 or fewer cards. Think about that, 54 or fewer cards. 54 would be all 52 playing cards and 2 jokers. Each pack had to have a revenue stamp affixed to it. The tax ended in 2015 under legislation that suspends taxes when the cost of collecting them outweighs the revenue gained. Wow. So those are just, I know, crazy. They're crazy. So those are just, wallpaper. That was the other one. I knew there was another one in here. In 1712, during the reign of Queen Anne of England, imposed a 1 pence per square yard tax on printed, patterned, or painted wallpaper. Decorators would bypass the tax by hanging plain wallpaper, then having it stenciled by hand. The British abolished the tax in 1836. So those are just some of the weird and wacky, quirky taxes that you got that are out there. We got some of this information from on FamilyTreeMagazine.com on one of their blogs, where it had 10 weird taxes our ancestors paid. It was an article written by Diane Haddad. So thank you, Diane, for writing that article. It was very informative. And then we also researched some other ones to see what else was out there. So if you can, you can look up some tax records in some areas, some of the older tax records, not the ones that are more current. I'm not sure what the cutoff time is for that. But you can look up tax records. And Ancestry has a few. FamilySearch.org will have some in there. And if they don't, they will tell you where to find them if you're looking up tax records. But some of them were just kind of weird and wacky. Which one out of those ones did you find the craziest one? Did you think was the craziest one to look up? And they can also, when you find the tax records, it will give you an insight to your ancestors' lifestyles, their priorities, and cultural values based on what taxes they had to pay at the time and how much they were paying and what the levies were at the time and how they were determined as well. So you'll be able to find all of that information in tax records. So, and our question for you this evening is, what's the quirkiest tax you have come across in your family history research? And share your finds in the comments below. Out of that list, I think the quirkiest one would be the squirrel one. That one just kind of, ugh. Yeah. And I'm sort of like, really? Okay, I can understand but did you at least get credit for taking in the squirrels off your taxes so you didn't have to pay as much tax? I think that's kind of what it said, but I'm not 100% sure. So if you bought in your 100 scalps of squirrels, how much more did you have to pay to satisfy your taxes? Or did all 100 scalps mean that you are now paid up on your taxes? So how many squirrels did you have to, how did they work out the proportion of what you had to pay and things like that? So that was kind of a strange one. But there's also some strange laws out there that your ancestors would have had to deal with as well. In fact, some of those laws are still in effect today. Things like it is illegal to slurp your soup in New Jersey. Yes. And in Alaska, it is illegal for more than one moose to be seen on the road. Yes, at one time. And I'm like, who's going to arrest the moose and explain to them what the rules are? So anyway, that's it from us. We are out of here. Go out, have a super fantastic sparkling evening, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Pacific. Hey, con